When my husband's family handed me a prenuptial agreement across a mahogany dining table on the Upper East Side, I understood something instantly. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about money. It was about control. Signing that document wouldn't just decide what I owned if my marriage failed, it would decide who I was allowed to be while it lasted. And the most terrifying part? They'd already decided what would happen if I refused. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was standing on Lexington Avenue, juggling my phone, a tote bag, and a lukewarm coffee I'd forgotten to drink. Nina, my future mother-in-law said, her voice smooth as polished marble, we'd love for you to come by the house tomorrow evening for dinner. I smiled automatically, already bracing myself. Of course. There was a pause, brief, deliberate. Just you, she added. Daniel will meet us later. He's busy at the firm. Just you. Every instinct in my body tightened. I'd been engaged to Daniel Whitmore for 6 months. Long enough to learn that his family never did anything casually, and never did anything without an agenda. What's the occasion? I asked lightly. Oh, nothing dramatic, she replied. We simply think it's time we had a grown-up conversation. A grown-up conversation. The line went dead. I stood there on the sidewalk, city noise rushing around me, heart pounding like I'd already lost something and didn't know what yet. That night, Daniel paced our apartment in Midtown, tie loosened, suit jacket slung over a chair that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. My mom can be intense, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. But she means well. That sentence, the one people say when they know it isn't true. She wants to see me alone, I said. That doesn't feel normal. He hesitated. They've always protected the family assets, he finally said. My parents built everything from nothing. They are cautious. Cautious. I watched him carefully. Daniel, is this about a prenup? His silence was my answer. I didn't know they'd bring it up now, he said quickly. And if they do, it's just a formality. New York law already recognizes separate property. That part was true. What he didn't say was what else New York law allowed, if you signed away your rights willingly. Just hear them out, he added. Hear them out. The words felt less like advice and more like preparation. The Whitmore townhouse sat on East 74th Street like it had been carved out of entitlement. 5 stories. Limestone facade. Black wrought iron gate that opened silently, as if even the hinges had signed an NDA. Inside, everything smelled faintly of lemon polish and money. No clutter. No warmth. No family photos, just abstract art, framed degrees, and a single oil painting of Daniel as a child, posed like a corporate heir instead of a boy. Margaret Whitmore greeted me at the door. Nina, she said, kissing the air near my cheek. You look lovely. She looked impeccable, as always, tailored navy dress, pearls, hair not a millimeter out of place. Her husband, Charles Whitmore, didn't stand. He simply nodded from the head of the dining table like a judge acknowledging the defendant. Dinner was already served. And at the center of the table, beside the crystal water pitcher, sat a thick ivory folder stamped with a Manhattan law firm's logo. Whitmore, Blake and Associates. My stomach dropped. We ate in near silence. Halfway through the meal, Margaret folded her napkin precisely and placed it on the table. Well, she said, let's not pretend this is just dinner. Charles slid the folder toward me. This is a prenuptial agreement, he said plainly. Drafted under New York domestic relations law. I opened it. And that's when I realized this wasn't a standard prenup. It was a legal chokehold. The key clauses, legally realistic. I read carefully. Slowly. Because I knew enough law to understand what they were doing. Clause 3.2, waiver of equitable distribution. I would waive all rights to marital property, even assets acquired during the marriage, regardless of contribution. In New York, marital property is usually divided equitably. This clause erased that protection entirely. Clause 4.1, income allocation agreement. 50% of my personal earned income would be designated as family contribution and deposited into a Whitmore family trust. Not Daniel's income. Mine. Clause 5.4, career limitation provision. If I pursued any business deemed competitive or reputationally risky to the Whitmore interests, I would forfeit spousal support. That clause alone would make most judges raise an eyebrow, but not if it was voluntarily agreed. Clause 6.7, no alimony, no maintenance. Regardless of marriage length. Regardless of fault. Regardless of sacrifice. 10 years. 20. Children. Didn't matter. Clause 8.9, confidentiality and non-disparagement. If the marriage ended, I could not speak publicly about the Whitmore family, ever. Violation carried a $500,000 penalty. My hands were shaking. This wasn't about protecting Daniel's premarital assets. This was about making sure I could never leave without being destroyed. I can't sign this, I said quietly. Margaret smiled. You haven't even discussed it with a lawyer. I don't need one to know this strips me of basic legal rights. Charles leaned back, fingers steepled. You come into this marriage with significantly fewer assets. There it was. This agreement ensures clarity, he continued. No confusion. No opportunism. I looked directly at Margaret. You think I'm an opportunist? She tilted her head. We think you're untested. Untested. You should feel grateful, she added. Most women would love the security of marrying into this family. Security. A word that meant something very different to them than it did to me. The front door opened. Daniel stepped inside, loosening his tie, rain clinging to his coat. What's going on? He asked. I slid the prenup toward him. His face changed as he read. This isn't standard, he said sharply. This is extreme. Margaret's voice was calm. It's necessary. Daniel looked at me. Then at them. You're asking her to give up her income. Her career. Her legal protections. If she loves you, Margaret said softly, she'll understand. And in that moment, I understood something else. This prenup wasn't a test of my love. It was a test of his loyalty. Charles stood. If this agreement is not signed, he said evenly, there will be no wedding. Daniel's jaw tightened. I looked at the man I loved, and saw him standing at the edge of a line his family had drawn years ago. And I realized the truth. This wasn't about whether I would marry into the Whitmores. It was about whether Daniel would ever be allowed to leave them. The rain came down hard as we pulled away from East 74th Street, Manhattan glowing behind us like a city that didn't care what had just happened. Neither of us spoke. The windshield wipers moved in a steady rhythm, slicing through the storm, but inside the car, the silence was suffocating. Finally, I broke it. They don't think I'm your partner, I said quietly. They think I'm a liability. Daniel's hands tightened around the steering wheel. They think everyone is. That's not true, I said. They think I am. He didn't argue. That hurt more than anything else. 2 days later, I sat across from Eleanor Price, a family law attorney whose office overlooked Bryant Park. Her walls were lined with framed bar admissions and court victories. She didn't smile unnecessarily. This is not a prenup, she said after 10 minutes of reading. It's a power transfer. My heart pounded. Is it even legal? She nodded slowly. Technically, yes. New York allows broad contractual freedom in prenuptial agreements, as long as there's full disclosure and no coercion. She tapped the page with her pen. But this document is designed to discourage exit, not protect assets. Courts don't like that, but they enforce it if the signer understands the consequences. So if I sign, I whispered, I'm trapped. Eleanor met my eyes. You're not just waiving money. You're waiving leverage. Your income, your voice, your future independence. I swallowed hard. They told me it was standard. She almost laughed. Standard for people who never intend to let their children grow up. Eleanor flipped to the last page. Clause 10.3, she said. Mandatory arbitration. No public court proceedings. I frowned. Is that bad? It means if anything goes wrong, abuse, financial misconduct, infidelity, you can't take them to open court. Everything happens behind closed doors. She leaned back. Ask yourself this, she said. Why would a family this powerful want privacy so badly? The answer crawled up my spine like ice. Margaret didn't wait long. She called Daniel 3 times a day. She's manipulating you. She's turning you against your family. She wants control, not love. I heard it all through the thin apartment walls. One night, Daniel threw his phone onto the couch, face pale. They're threatening to remove me from the family trust. My chest tightened. Daniel, how much does that mean financially? He hesitated. 7 figures, he admitted. Eventually more. That was when I understood the real weapon. This wasn't emotional pressure. This was financial extortion disguised as tradition. Margaret invited us back. This time, it wasn't a request. We need to resolve this, she said sharply. The second dinner was colder. No pleasantries. No wine. Charles spoke first. Our attorneys are prepared to proceed immediately upon signature. And if I don't sign? I asked. He didn't blink. Then Daniel will be removed as beneficiary, board member, and successor. Daniel stood. You can't do that. Margaret's voice was ice. We already have. Silence slammed into the room. I looked at Daniel. This was the moment. After we left, Daniel pulled over on Park Avenue. He stared at the dashboard, breathing hard. They've always controlled everything, he said finally. School, career, money, even who I dated. I reached for his hand. I didn't realize how much until now. His voice broke. I don't know who I am without them. And that was the most honest thing he'd ever said. 3 days later, Daniel didn't come home. I lay awake until 2:17 a.m., staring at the ceiling, my phone clutched in my hand. When the door finally opened, he stepped in soaked to the bone. In his hands, the prenup. Ripped. Torn. Destroyed. I told them no, he said hoarsely. I told them I choose you. My heart stopped. They said I'm no longer their son, he continued. They cut me off. Everything. I pulled him into my arms. In that moment, love stopped being romantic. It became defiant. We cancelled the wedding venue. Returned the gifts. Moved into a smaller apartment downtown. No trust fund. No safety net. But something shifted. For the first time, Daniel made choices without asking permission. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of being erased. What his family didn't understand was this. They thought taking everything from us would make us weak. They didn't realize it would make us free. And they weren't done yet. We got married on a quiet October morning at City Hall. No marble halls. No family fortune. No Whitmore name printed in gold. Just us. The clerk mispronounced my name. Daniel laughed softly. I cried harder than I expected. Outside, the air smelled like rain and street food. Taxis honked. Life went on. And for the first time, it felt like it belonged to us. Our apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up on the Lower East Side. The radiator hissed like it was angry at us personally. The couch came from Craigslist. Our dining table was a folding one meant for poker nights. Daniel took a consulting job that didn't carry his last name like a credential. I went back to work full-time, building my career without fear of being reputationally risky. Every bill paid felt like a victory. Every night we fell asleep knowing no one could take what we had earned. Margaret didn't disappear. She adapted. Emails began arriving from people I barely knew. I'm concerned about Daniel. We heard you isolating him. You don't seem stable. Someone leaked a story to an industry blog suggesting Daniel had personal issues and was no longer reliable. A former family friend pulled him aside at an event. Your mother's worried, they said. She thinks you've been manipulated. That word again. Manipulated. I expected Daniel to crack. He didn't. Daniel sent one email. 1. Do not contact my wife again. Any further attempts to interfere with our lives will be handled through counsel. It wasn't angry. It was final. And something shifted. The calls slowed. The whispers faded. The silence that followed was heavy, but clean. Without family capital, Daniel rebuilt his career from scratch. It was slower. Harder. Real. We learned to live within our means, to plan, to trust each other completely. When success came, it wasn't inherited. It was earned. Our home filled with laughter, friends who chose us, late-night conversations that felt safe. No contracts. No conditions. No fear. Years later, the call I never expected. It came on a Sunday afternoon. Margaret's number. Daniel looked at me, questioning. I nodded. Hello, he said. Her voice was different. Smaller. We were wrong, she said quietly. We were afraid. Daniel held my hand. I didn't lose anything, he replied. I found my real life. She cried. It didn't change the past. But it closed a door. The lesson they never learned. We didn't win because we got richer. We won because we refused to shrink. I learned something powerful. A prenup can protect love, or it can expose the absence of it. Real love doesn't demand silence. Real love doesn't require you to disappear. Real love stands beside you when power is weaponized. We had no inheritance. No safety net. No approval. But we had each other. And that was more than enough.